episode 257 of the Various and Sundry Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Harmon, joined live in the Vault Studio, the beautiful campus of Grace College and Grace Theological Seminary, by my good friend, my colleague, my co-host, and the man who is rushing through this podcast so he can meet with the president.
Yep.
John Scott Sloat.
Doc, what's happening?
Well, it's the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
December is here.
I had my regular meeting, Monday morning meeting this morning at 8:30, and people were sluggish.
Yeah.
It's tough Monday
So were my Greek
following.
students. Yeah, my Greek students this morning were a little sluggish.
Yeah. They're traveling from all over the place.
Yeah.
They've been off for not a week, but like the
5 days.
the better part of a week, the better part of a work week, I suppose.
Yeah, 5 days. I mean,
So yeah, everybody's a little sluggish.
yeah, I walked out of the house this morning without my coffee.
Whoa.
Yeah. And by the time I realized it, I was basically at campus, and so it was too late to turn around. So I went through my Greek class this morning without coffee, and then in between Greek class and our faculty meeting, I ran home to
I had a cookie at your faculty meeting this morning.
yeah, it's in your building.
Yeah, I just walked downstairs and
Why not?
they were cleaning up, and I said, "Can I have one of those cookies?" And they delightfully handed me.
Of course. I mean, you're a vice president.
I am.
You could have said, "Can I have all the cookies?" And they probably would have been like, "Yes, sir."
I don't think they would have done that, but I could have probably have gotten two. Yes, I could have.
I think so. All right. Well, if you would like to contact the show and talk to John about his favorite kind of Christmas cookie, you can find us on X at VNSPod. You can email the show, variousandsundrypodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook and on YouTube, and you would just bless our socks off if you left a 5-star rating and a review. I mean, talk about a holiday gift, a Christmas gift. What a gift that would be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, we're coming up. I mean, as we're recording today is Cyber Monday. And then tomorrow is when this episode drops.
Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, you want to give your 30-second pitch for Grace?
Yeah. I mean, we're running a special right now on for Giving Tuesday that every gift given up to $200,000 toward the Westminster Shook Welcome Center will be matched dollar for dollar up to $200K.
What if I have more than $200,000 I want to give towards that?
Well, it's matched dollar for dollar up to $200K, and then it's just dollar.
I see.
After that.
I'm not suggesting I do, just to be clear.
No. I did not assume you did. But it is an opportunity.
I mean, there could be listeners who are sitting on $250,000 that that's burning a hole in their pocket.
Well, people call you this time of year like, I have for tax purposes.
Yeah.
I need to do X, Y, Z. So I actually have all my calls to my office phone forwarded to my cell, and like people will reach out and desire to make a gift and leave voicemails and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, it is that time of year. Why not? Why not make Giving Tuesday a day where you give to Grace College and Grace Theological Seminary?
That's right.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
I mean, it's that time of year.
Yeah.
Help those taxes. When you get towards April of next year, you will regret not
That's right.
having done this.
100%.
When you look at that tax bill and you're like, man, I could have reduced that. And more significantly, helped a fine organization.
Well, and if you're a state of Indiana resident, if you give $400 to a higher ed institution, you get $200 back on your state income tax.
That's right. Yeah. So they give you half back up to $400.
Right. You get half of $400, so you get $200 back.
Right.
Married filing jointly.
Yes. There you go.
So,
all sorts of helpful.
Lots of people don't know that in the state of Indiana.
Yeah. I trust me, I'm dialed in.
Yeah. Matt Harmon's giving to Grace College and Seminary is $400.
Exactly. That's all. That's it. That's exactly. Down to the penny.
Down to the penny.
Not $399.99. Not $400.01.
Yeah.
400.
I have a story off air to tell you.
Okay. All right. Well, John, it's time for us to move on to sports.
You want to rip the Band-Aid off?
I think it is approaching Festivus, and so we will consider this my airing of grievances.
Okay. Talk us through Michigan, Ohio State.
Yeah. So in the largest upset by point spread in the history of the rivalry,
wow,
that team up north, despite being I think it settled at 19 points. Despite being a 19-point underdog on the road, came into Ohio Stadium and beat the Buckeyes 13-10. And I think it is probably I was texting with Zach in Ohio about this. He was asking me, where does this rank in the list of losses in my lifetime? And I think it is the most disappointing loss to the team up north I have ever gone through.
Really?
Yes. The other close one might be 1996 when Ohio State was unbeaten and ranked, I think they were ranked 1 or 2, and lost to an inferior team up north. That cost them basically playing for a national title. One they would have won because back in those days, you didn't even have the BCS. So they would have gone into the Rose Bowl, which they won, and they would have won the national championship.
Okay, so what happened in the game? Was this Michigan winning the game? Was it Ohio State losing the game?
It's both. I mean, look, the team up north deserves credit for the win. They do. But I cannot remember a worse offensive game plan by an Ohio State football team in my lifetime. So Michigan has their strength. The strength of their team is their defensive line. They have 2 defensive tackles who will be first or second round draft picks.
Okay.
At the same time, they didn't have their leading cornerback, Wilt Johnson, who's going to be a first round pick as a corner.
Mm-hmm.
So Ohio State has this decided advantage on the outside, where we have 3 guys who will be NFL wide receivers. 2 of them will be first round draft picks. So you would think that given that strategic advantage, you might say, hey, I think we should throw the ball to those people. Oh, but would you be wrong? Instead, we decide that our game plan is going to be repeatedly run the ball up the middle.
It was like run, pass, right?
Yes.
That was sort of consistently
run
happening.
for 1 yard, run for 2 more yards. Now it's 3rd and 7, obvious passing situation. That was the game plan. We have the best freshman wide receiver in the country, Jeremiah Smith. A guy who, if he was able to go into the NFL draft this year, and he's not because he's a freshman, would be probably a top 10 NFL pick right now. And we did not throw the ball towards him in the entire second half of the game. What are you doing? To use a basketball analogy, it would be like devising a game plan where you're playing a team that has, let's say, your team is very skilled at perimeter play and shooting threes and penetrating and all that sort of stuff. And instead you decide, okay, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to dump it inside to a guy who is 6 inches shorter than their post player and try to beat him that way. In fact, there are quotes that have emerged from the Michigan coaches after the game in disbelief at what Ohio State was doing. Like laughing at, can you believe they're just continuing to run the ball up the middle? Like laughing.
Yeah.
Like, who could have thought that they would be this dumb? And they were.
So, question for you.
Yeah.
coming out of this game. A lot of chatter on the internet about Ryan Day not being back. Do you think he's back, or did this kind of put the nail in the coffin?
It all depends on what he does in the playoff.
Okay, so you give him through the playoff to sort of like if he goes on a run and wins the whole thing.
Oh yeah,
he's sticking around.
Oh yeah,
gets bounced in the first.
If they lose their opening round game, here's the problem though. You had your athletic director come out and say he's our coach, so you have the dreaded vote of confidence.
Yeah. When the guy comes out to do a special press conference to say he's our guy, that's normally the first indication he's going.
Well, the biggest issue is he apparently has an enormous buyout. Like I've seen something around the number of $37 million to buy him out of his contract. That's a lot of money. When you're trying to get boosters to pay for NIL stuff. The last thing you want to do is take $37 million of that and be like, yeah, we're going to get rid of this guy. And you got to pony up money for the next guy.
Yeah, I think that's the big question.
And who's the next guy?
Who do you replace him with?
There's talk of replacing him with Mike Vrabel, former Tennessee Titans coach, Ohio State grad.
Yeah.
I don't know that he'll take it. I don't know that he wants to coach in college.
Yeah.
I think he wants to be in the NFL.
I know they've talked about him for the Jets job, which is a pipe dream in my opinion. But
you don't think he'd take it?
Who would? I mean,
well,
right?
I think your question is more of, I think. Well, we're switching topics, but Rex Ryan would take it, but I'm
not sure that's a good thing.
No, I agree, but I agree with you. I think that the Jets is a job where you're going to have to get a young guy.
Yep.
You're not going to get not that Bill Cowher, for example, is looking, but you're not going to get a guy who's like a seasoned veteran NFL coach who's like, yeah, I want to go into that situation.
That's a great situation. Yeah.
You're just going to get guys who I want my first NFL head coaching job.
Do you think you could get the guy out of Notre Dame, the guy that's at Notre Dame now?
Marcus Freeman?
Yeah. You like him?
Want him? I think he's too green still.
Okay.
I think I've seen people. He's an Ohio State grad.
Right.
Played for Ohio State.
Right.
Was a great linebacker. However, everyone's high on him right now. They did lose to Northern Illinois at home.
Yeah.
And this is the dilemma with Ryan Day. Saturday was the first time in his 6 years or whatever, where he has lost to an unranked team. He was 44-0 against unranked teams until he lost to Michigan on Saturday.
Yeah, it was. I watched the whole game. It was too many turnovers, too many missed field goals.
Yeah, but it should not even been that close.
It shouldn't have been.
On paper, again, games aren't played on paper, but on paper, it's understandable why Ohio State was nearly a 3-touchdown favorite.
All right. If Ryan Day doesn't survive, does Chip Kelly survive?
No, I don't think Chip Kelly survives this year, period. If Ryan Day survives, I don't know that Chip – again, this all hinges on what they do in the playoff.
Which they're definitely in.
Yes.
Okay.
No chance they miss it.
Second loss?
It's their second.
Okay.
There's no chance. The debate right now is whether they will get a first round home game. Because you have to be – that means you end up finishing in the 5th through 8th spots. And so some of that will depend. I think they still will get one based on some results from the conference championship games, which will probably, we'll see what happens there. But I think they'll probably end up being around the 7 or the 8 seed probably. Which honestly, the 7th seed wouldn't be the worst place in the world for them. A home game depends on who they play, and then they would match up with the 2 seed. which will probably be, assuming Texas wins the SEC championship game, would be Texas. And assuming Oregon wins the Big Ten title game.
Yeah, I think Oregon winning feels likely.
The whole thing, or
the Big Ten championship game?
I don't really even think that game will be that close, to be honest.
Because Penn State,
I think they'll roll over Penn State, to be honest.
All right, I know we could talk about this topic all day. Do you want to any other college football things you want to highlight? I did have a question.
Yeah.
And this is Ohio State Michigan related, but and I think Ohio State Michigan was the first one melee on the field following the game. But there was like 6 of them on Saturday.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
Well, it's dumb. But here's the thing. The incident in Columbus happened because players from Michigan were about to try to plant the Michigan flag at midfield in Ohio Stadium.
Sure, like Baker Mayfield.
Yes, and understandably so. Some Ohio State players took offense to that.
Yes,
and so that's what started the incident. Both teams, both schools, I should say, were fined $100,000.
Yeah, $100,000. I saw that.
Yeah, I think the easy thing to do is to just ban that kind of stuff. Is to say, this is not allowed. If you try to plant your flag on an opponent's field, you're going to get fined. End of story.
So,
just like they're trying to eliminate some of the other things, like fans throwing stuff on the field and that kind of thing, where they fine the school $250,000 or whatever.
So this didn't just happen at Ohio State, Michigan. It happened Arizona State. There was an altercation.
Yeah.
There were several.
Yeah.
Is that indicative of something larger? Is there something going on in college football that I don't feel like that stuff happened before, but maybe that's just me going like, why did 6 of these happen on the same day?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think there are incidents back in the history of the Ohio State-Michigan rivalry. There are incidents like this. I don't know the year. This would have been like late 70s probably. There's a classic image of Ohio State taking the field at Michigan. And Michigan always has this like big banner that the team runs through, like that says "Go Blue, Michigan boosters are behind you" or something like that. And the Ohio State players, as they take the field, like run up and tear that down. We're talking like 70s.
Yeah.
So there are precedents for these kinds of things. Are they more common now? Probably. I don't know.
Everybody has a gimmick.
Yeah.
There was, apparently Indiana and Purdue.
Yeah.
Anyway, anything else from the world of college football you want to highlight? There was a great game between Georgia Tech.
Yeah, stupid overtime rules.
Anything else from college football? Let me just scan the scores here.
No, I mean
Texas dealt with A&M.
Yeah.
Iowa State beat Kansas. Indiana 66-0 over Purdue.
Miami lost. Miami of Florida lost, which means they're out of the ACC championship and probably out of the playoff. They're borderline. They're gonna. That'll be really interesting to see if they get in.
Let's see. South Carolina beat Clemson. That was
but because that's a non-conference game for Clemson,
right.
They end up making
the ACC
championship because
funny.
Miami lost.
And Georgia beat Georgia Tech.
Playoffs. I don't think this current playoff structure will last past this year or next because people will see the results of ACC or Big 12 champions being 3 and 4 seeds, even though by the rankings they're probably behind 3 Big 10 and 3 SEC schools each.
Does Arizona State get in? Arizona State University? They're 10-2.
Yeah, they play in the Big 12 championship against. I had it here. Iowa State.
Iowa State. Okay.
So yes, you're either going to get an 11-2 Iowa State team or an 11-2 Arizona State team that'll get in.
One or the other, not both.
One, not both. Not both.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to pro football? Can we consider therapy commenced?
I think so. I've aired my grievance. I've aired a portion of my grievances.
Yeah.
I have more, but
when will the feats of strength competition come to?
That's off pod. Your Jets, they just keep finding ways.
New ways
to lose.
Yes, new ways to lose. I think they had 12 penalties in the fourth quarter or something like that.
Yeah.
Just something ridiculous. Aaron Rodgers with another lackluster performance. And some of this comes down to coaching. Some of it comes down to execution. I just don't see this team doing much. I mean, Aaron Rodgers only threw for 185 yards on 39 attempts.
Yeah. Yep, it's a dumpster fire.
Breece Hall fumbled the ball twice.
Not a recipe for success.
We did have a kickoff return for a touchdown.
Okay,
which was positive. We missed an extra point along the way.
Yeah, I mean, those are longer now, right? I mean, since they moved it back to, it's like a 37-yard extra point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a lot of – let me see if I could get – we were 5 for 13 on third down. That's not great.
Okay.
Where's the penalty yardage? We had 12 penalties for 83 yards.
That's no bueno.
No. Just overall, just sort of a lackluster game. I'm not sure there's much more to say about it.
Yeah.
Than like every indication is they're just burning the whole thing to the ground and starting over.
You have to.
But you know what's going to happen is some hotshot GM is going to, with a silver tongue, tell Woody Johnson that you have all the pieces here. You just need the next guy, this leader of men, to step in and.
But do you think Aaron Rodgers is coming back next year?
No.
Even if I don't think he wants to.
No, I don't think he wants to either.
So that's a big piece.
Right. But I think somebody comes in with a silver tongue and goes, they're going to be worm tongue from
yes, Lord of the Rings. Yes.
And just kind of go, listen. All you need is somebody that can – you have some of the best players in the league. You just need to motivate them.
Yeah.
And they'll bring somebody in, and they'll probably win 8 to 10 games, be in the hunt, miss the playoffs, and then there won't be a good system in place. This GM will come in, make bad signings that will sink the organization for 5 to 7 years. That's what will happen. That's exactly what will happen.
Yeah. I can see it.
And Sauron will win.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen. The ring will return to him and not go to New York.
Yes.
No one on the Jets will get a ring.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. For sure. But we have had an extended sports section here.
Keep an eye out for Juan Soto this week. See where he signs for baseball. Are you familiar with Juan Soto?
I'm not.
Came up with the Nationals, started playing in the majors at 20.
Okay.
He's now 26, 27, and is a free agent and is going to garner somewhere between $650 and a $700 million contract for 15 years.
That just feels like monopoly money, like not real.
And believe it, the Mets are in the mix.
Of course.
With baseball's richest owner. So we'll see what happens.
Yes. All right, John, we have to move on here to begin our Advent in Isaiah series.
Sounds good. Isaiah.
Yes, indeed. So, since it is the Advent season, the goal here, we'll have, I think 4. Is that what we have here?
I hope so. That'll get us to the end of the year, right?
Well, not after Christmas. We have to have our State of the Pod. There's more going on.
State of the Pod?
There's the State of the Pod. There's the Christmas week episode that's like...
What are we doing for the Christmas week episode?
This is such bad air. This is just bad radio. But I think we were doing what we're going to read over Christmas or what we're looking forward to reading over Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. I think that was your idea.
Okay. What was it now?
I think so.
Doc, I just throw out so many ideas that it's incredible to me that anything sticks.
Okay. All right. Well.
Was this Advent series my idea?
No.
Okay. This feels more like your idea.
Yeah, it's mine.
Okay.
So we are discussing Advent in Isaiah. So again, lots of things you can do with Advent. So we're going to be looking at several key texts in Isaiah throughout the course of the next several episodes to prepare our hearts for the arrival of Christmas. And so we're going to start with let's start with Isaiah 7:14, quoted in Matthew 1:23. So here's how we're going to do this. You'll be relieved to know the internet is back up, by the way.
Oh, wonderful. I'll turn on my Wi-Fi.
Yeah. So, yes, we began this episode right literally as I was about to hit print for the show notes, and the internet went down in the building. So, we're scrambling here.
Yep.
This episode is verging on a hot mess, but we're going to try to salvage it right now. Turn to Matthew chapter 1. Let's start there. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 1.
Okay.
Familiar text. And let's go ahead and read.
I'm going to start at 18 there.
Let me see here. Let's start at, sure. Let's go 18. And you might as well go through, what is that, the end?
The end of chapter 1?
Yeah,
okay.
25, 18 to 25.
Okay. Now the birth of Jesus Christ took place in this way. When his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph before they came together, she was found to be with child from the Holy Spirit, and her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered these things, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. And this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke from sleep, he did as the angel of the Lord commanded him. He took his wife, but knew her not until she had given birth to a son. And he called his name Jesus.
Okay. All right, so the focus of what we're doing this episode is that quotation from Isaiah 7:14.
Yep.
So we should kind of jump back there,
okay,
and look at what's going on in Isaiah 7:14. Do you have that one queued up?
I sure do. You want me to go 10 to 17 there?
That might be too much.
10 to 14? Or you want to go?
Let's go, 10. What is that, 10 through 17 there? Is that paragraph? Yeah.
10 through 17? Okay. And the Lord spoke to Ahaz. Am I pronouncing that right?
Ahaz.
I can never pronounce things right. Ask a sign of the Lord your God. Let it be deep as Sheol or high as heaven. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, and I will not put the Lord to the test. And he said, Hear then, O house of David, Is it too little for you to weary men, that you weary my God also? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. He shall eat curds and honey when he knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the boy knows how to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land whose two kings you dread will be deserted. The Lord will bring upon you and upon your people and upon your father's house such days as have not come since the days of Ephraim departed from Judah, the king of Assyria.
Okay,
There's
so
an exclamation point at the end of that. I didn't really
hit that, did you?
I didn't hit the exclamation point well there.
The king of Assyria.
Which probably isn't in the original Hebrew.
No punctuation there. All right. So just some context here.
Yeah.
In Isaiah, the situation is you've got King Ahaz of Judah, and he's got...
This is after the kingdoms have split,
yes.
north and south.
So you've got you have the king of Syria and the king of Israel on the doorstep getting ready to attack. And obviously he's concerned about this, and God assures him, don't worry, I got this. They're not going to be able to muster an attack. And as verification of that, God, through the prophet Isaiah, invites Ahaz, go ahead, suggest a sign, and I'll do it as a way of validating that they won't successfully attack you. And Ahaz, thinking he is being pious, refuses to test the Lord. Far be it from me to do such a thing. Even though God is directly saying,
do it.
So, when he refuses, God says, fine, I'll give you a sign anyway. And that sign is listed there in verse 14, talking about, and again, there's a translation issue here. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and you shall call his name Emmanuel. Now, the translation issue is that
this could also be young woman?
Yes.
Is that the translation
The Hebrew
issue?
term by itself just means a young woman of marriage age.
Okay.
The assumption in that day would have been that a young woman of that condition would have been a virgin. What's interesting, though, is that the Hebrew text by itself doesn't demand the translation virgin. So it is a legitimate translation to translate that virgin, but it may be a more specific translation than the Hebrew itself directly indicates. However, the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Old Testament, specifically translates that as virgin.
Really?
The specific term, virgin, which is what Matthew picks up then in Matthew 1. So
in the context of Isaiah 7, is Isaiah going, that that young woman over there? Is he pointing at somebody?
No, but it is an interesting dynamic because in the context of Isaiah, there is a partial or initial fulfillment of this promise. And you see that in chapter 8, where basically you've got a child of Isaiah. So Isaiah has a child, and he's instructed to name this child. Love this name. This is in Isaiah 8:3. Call his name Maher Shalal Hashbaz. And then when you go to, as most English Bibles have, little footnotes that tell you what names mean in these sort of passages, the ESV has Maher Shalal Hashbaz means the spoil speeds, the prey hastens. which in my estimation is actually a disappointment, because the New American Standard translation, their little footnote explaining the meaning of the name is "Swift is the booty, speedy is the prey." So that's stuck in my brain.
Yeah.
I haven't used the NAS for 20 years. But that one stuck in my brain.
Absolutely.
So, in any case, that chapter goes on to identify this child, I think, as at least a partial fulfillment of this promise, because at the end of verse 8, you have...
In chapter 8.
In chapter 8, yes. God says, "It will sweep on into Judah, it will overflow and pass on, touching even to the neck, and its outspread wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel." And then if you keep reading down to verse 10, "Take counsel together, but it will come to nothing. Speak a word, but it will not stand, for God is with us," which is what Emmanuel means.
Yeah.
Now, in the immediate context, the sign to Ahaz is the birth of this child.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even in the context, there's hints that this is pointing to something greater.
Right. There's a near fulfillment and a far fulfillment.
Exactly.
Sort of idea.
Exactly. Because I think when you jump into chapter 9 and then you look at verse 6, another famous Christmas text, so to speak, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end, on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and with righteousness from this time forth and forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will do this." So I think the context points you to this both-and kind of fulfillment, this fulfillment of, in Ahaz's day, the birth of Isaiah's son was intended to be a sign. And it was. But there's a greater reality coming. And that's what Matthew's picking up on when he sees this text in Matthew 7 and uses it to refer to Jesus being God with us.
And there's no way this child in Isaiah 8 can fulfill everything that's in Isaiah 9.
Correct.
Right? I mean, he's called God, Mighty God, for one.
Right. Well, and he's not, the biggest thing is
He's not
Isaiah's
David.
child is not in the line of David.
Right. I was about to point that out. Yeah, he's not in David's line.
Correct.
And so
Yeah.
this can't be this child.
Correct. So it's a partial fulfillment, which is a common thing in the Old Testament, right? You have an initial sort of partial fulfillment. You have this with God's promise to David in 2 Samuel 7. You know, that a son's going to be born, a king's going to come from his line who will build a house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in the immediate context, as you keep reading, it becomes clear that Solomon is, in some sense, the fulfillment of that. But clearly he doesn't reign over an eternal kingdom. And clearly not all the nations are coming to him and surrendering to him. So there's clearly more going on than that. So this is a common thing. And Matthew's looking at that and saying, now at last this is the fulfillment of God being with us. And he's doing so in the form of a child. That Jesus is not just God with us in some generic sense, but he is God in the flesh, to use John's language. He is taken on flesh and dwelt among us. And yet even this is not the full and final realization of this promise either. Because ultimately, when you look at Revelation 21, you have this, you have the full realization of God dwelling with his people. And so that is, it's a really good example of partial leading to ultimate and final fulfillment.
That progressive fulfillment.
Yeah. So that's kind of the theology of it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's wrap this segment up with some kind of reflections on sort of application. So what are some applications that you would take away from what Matthew is doing there talking about Jesus?
Well, some specific applications. My goodness. I do think there is something to that God keeps his promises, right? Right. Even if it's not 100% clear, right?
Sure.
Right. So
Absolutely.
these promises, though veiled's the wrong term, but from Old to New Testament, like God is fulfilling those promises, even though we don't necessarily even though the people of the Bible didn't necessarily see them as promises, right? Right. Like I don't think anybody was waiting for the Christ to be born in this specific passage applied to him, right?
There's no indication of any Jewish texts seeing this as a messianic text.
So God is faithful to his promises. Would be one. What would your takeaway be?
Well, I think I would take it back to the garden and say, you look at God's original intention was to dwell with his people. And he did so provisionally after the fall, through the tabernacle, through the temple, and ultimately in Jesus. That's where you see the clearest expression of God taking on flesh, dwelling among us. And yet, to continue forward, God dwells with us. God is with us by his Spirit. And it's interesting, you see how the Gospel of Matthew begins with this promise, right? And then how does it end? Jesus saying, I am with you always, even to the end of the ages.
Yeah.
So the Gospel of Matthew is bracketed by God wants to be with his people. And not just in some generic distant sense, but like in as close and personal and intimate way as possible. God wants to be with his people. And to me, that's really encouraging because, it's easy to look at your own life and say, to focus on your sin, your shortcomings, all that sort of, and to marvel, despite all of that, God wants to be with me. And if you have put your faith in Jesus and been born again, then he is with you. He is with you even in the midst of the hard aspects of this life.
Yeah.
And so I think that's always been something that's encouraging to me. And yet it's just a taste. It's just a foretaste of God being with his people in a way that we can't even fully wrap our brains around in the new creation. Which, you think about how the storyline culminates of it saying that we as his people will see his face. Something that all throughout the Old Testament, it's like you can't see the face of God and live. You can't see the face of God. And how does the Bible end? They will see his face.
Yeah.
So I think there's some application there in terms of encouragement and even just, if you're in Christ, God is with you. God is dwelling inside of you. He knows what you're going through, the joys, the hardships, etc. And so that'd be one of the things I would want to draw from that. Anything else, sir? You ready
I don't
to
think
move
so.
on?
Let's press on.
All right. Time now for This Day in Sports History.
All right. This day in sports history, December 3rd, 2024. We're in the fourth quarter here.
Late in the fourth quarter.
In the fourth quarter. Also, Happy Giving Tuesday to all who celebrate.
Okay.
December 3rd, 2024, Giving Tuesday.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Let's see. On this day, 1956, basketball icon Wilt Chamberlain makes his much-anticipated college debut, scoring 52 points and grabbing 31 rebounds, breaking both all-time Kansas records in an 87-69 win against Northwestern.
That's not bad.
52 and 31?
Yeah.
That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
That's not bad at all. Wilt Chamberlain was very good.
He was.
And he was a bit of a freak in his own era.
Yes, he was.
Bit of a unicorn.
Indeed.
Not necessarily in other eras. There have been similar guys.
Yeah, I think you put him in any era and he would have been terrific.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I agree with that. I do.
But yes, there were fewer big men like that
1968, Major League Baseball Rules Committee, owners meeting this week, adopts a series of changes designed to increase the amount of offensive run production. This could say 2023 on there. Decrease strike zone size and lowers height of pitcher's mound from 15 inches to 10 inches. The changes are successful.
Yeah, those are pretty big changes.
Yeah, particularly the pitcher's mound.
Yes. I don't think people probably realize.
5 inches makes a difference.
Yeah. I mean, the difference in elevation from that pitch is coming from down towards home plate makes a big difference.
Yeah. They also changed the rules a few years ago to increase offense. This seems to always be what they're doing, right? Let's increase offense. Let's increase offense. Chicks dig the long ball, right? 1989, Stefan Edberg of Sweden claims his first and only ATP Masters Grand Prix tennis title with a series of wins that I'm not going to read out the scores of over defending champion Boris Becker at Madison Square Garden, New York City.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they played tennis at Madison Square Garden.
Apparently. I mean, this is 1989, so I don't know how recently they've done that, but
that's pretty wild.
I mean,
I suppose in December in New York you'd have to play in Madison Square, play indoors.
I mean, haven't they done basically everything in Madison Square Garden?
I remember going to the circus when I was a young boy at Madison Square Garden.
I'm sure there's been rodeos there. There's obviously been big boxing matches.
Yeah.
They probably have thrown in an arena football league game in there somewhere.
Oh, any way to make money.
Yeah.
Ice capades, I'm sure.
Of course.
Did you know when I believe gambling on boxing was outlawed in New York? Which I can't believe there was a time that was ever happening, but they commissioned a barge out on the Hudson.
I'm not surprised by that.
And had boxing matches out there where people could gamble on the boxing matches.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty wild. 1997, the Golden State Warriors terminate. Oh gosh,
that's a typo there. Yeah.
Terminate guard Latrell Sprewell's 4-year, $32 million NBA contract for attacking his coach. I believe he choked him.
I believe that's correct, yes.
And then he went on to the Knickerbockers.
Yeah.
And had a decent career with the Knickerbockers. Played well. Had some good seasons.
Yeah.
I remember my mom telling me, you can't like him. He choked his coach.
Celeste.
And
I love it.
He's good at basketball.
I love it. I appreciate the moral stand by your mom.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Celeste Sloat.
Oh, yeah.
Love it. Love it. All right. Who do you like out of that?
I actually like Wilt.
Okay.
Do you like Wilt?
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, I certainly don't want to put the rules committee up there.
No. And you have a thing against foreign names, so.
I do.
Okay. So Wilt Chamberlain it is. One thing you liked.
This is happening tonight, so I assume I will like it. But the Larson family is stopping by our house for dinner, so I've ordered pizza, some salads, and we're gonna eat some food.
Okay.
So I have not seen the Larsons in 4 years.
And isn't there someone else joining you as well?
No.
Oh, they're not.
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
Not that I am aware of.
Okay. I must have misinterpreted a conversation I had yesterday. No worries.
Yeah, well, now I'm worried.
We'll talk off pod. Yeah, I'm glad you're going to get a chance to catch up with them. Am I right in saying they've never met?
They've never met my wife, no.
And Andrea obviously was never met.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen them since pre-COVID.
Wow.
I mean, they're up in
upstate New York.
Upstate New York.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, they're not right around the corner.
I don't cross country ski, so how am I supposed to get there?
You do travel a good bit
to population areas. Yes.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I'm also going to go with time with people this past weekend, despite the horrendous football result. On Saturday, we had Jake and Autumn, and John and his girlfriend, Hita, were with us.
Nice.
So it was a lot of fun to have the four of them. And, it's just grateful for that. And it's just fun to see, the older my sons get, the more fascinating it is to me just to see the young men that they've become.
Yeah.
And I was thinking this over the weekend, and I said this to Kate. I said, part of what stings about the loss to the team up north is I find myself thinking, I hate that it means this much to me. And I hate even more that because it means this much to me, I've passed that on to my wife and to my sons. And that it means that much to them. That it stings this much when you lose the big game like that.
Yeah.
It was. But anyway, just fun to have them around, and that is my one thing I liked. All right, John, we have muddled our way through a lot of airing of grievances about Ohio State football. We have talked about Isaiah 7:14 in Matthew 1:23, Emmanuel, God with us. We have talked about Wilt Chamberlain. We've talked about your visit with the Larsons.
Future visit.
And we have talked about my time with my sons and their significant others. Nice. And so I think, by definition, we have covered our various and sundry topics. And all that's left to say is, until next time, the Lord bless y'all real good.
Later.